the lost village of Anjikuni Lake, a secret hidden in the silence of the north. In the vast northern wilderness of Canada, in the cold of November 1930, rumors spread of a village that had mysteriously disappeared. The legend echoed not only across the silent tundra, but soon captivated all of Canada. This enduring mystery centers on an Inuit village on the shores of Anjikuni Lake in the remote northern regions of Canada, where all the inhabitants seem to have vanished without a trace. At the center of this strange event was a fur trapper named Joe Labelle. Labelle knew the harsh Canadian wilderness and lived in harmony with nature. One winter day, as he approached this village on his hunting route, expecting to see familiar faces, he found a village that seemed to have been abandoned in an instant. The eerie silence unsettled Labelle and filled him with a deep sense of dread. As he discovered the deserted village on the shores of Lake Anjikuni, he could not understand the mystery behind the disappearance. The mystery of that day. What happened at Anjikuni Lake? Anjikuni Lake, a cold and remote lake in northern Canada, was known for its harsh conditions. The Inuit communities living around the lake had adapted to the harsh climate over generations. The village in question, with a population of around 25, seemed to bear all the signs of an ordinary day. As Labelle approached, everything seemed normal from the outside, but as he ventured further, it became clear that this was an illusion. As he walked between the igloos, Labelle saw no signs of life. As he looked inside the houses, he realized that the village had been abandoned. Almost every igloo looked as if people had left with the intention of returning soon. Lamps were still burning, stoves were lit, and items such as kayaks, ropes, and fishing gear were all in place. Yet there was no trace of the people who had lived there. It was so bizarre that the idea of the Inuit, who had adapted to the rhythms of nature, abandoning all their essential belongings, defied any logical explanation. On entering one igloo, Labelle found a pot still steaming on the table, although the food inside had cooled, as if it had been left only moments before. It was as if the villagers had vanished in an instant, leaving their chores unfinished. Even more disturbing was the meticulous order in which all their belongings had been left, clothes folded and objects neatly arranged, raising even more questions in Labelle's mind. The tragic fate of the sled dogs. Another strange aspect of this disappearance story concerns the sled dogs, which were essential to the survival of the villagers. Labelle expected to find the dogs tied up in their usual place, but the dogs were nowhere to be found. Later, the remains of the dogs were discovered far from the village, and it was determined that they had starved to death. This suggested that the villagers had not left in a hurry, as they had left their dogs behind. However, it was highly unusual for the Inuit to abandon such a vital resource as their sled dogs, which added a further layer of mystery to the story. Disturbed graves in the cemetery. One of the most disturbing details Labelle encountered was in the village cemetery. Like all Inuit communities, this village had ancestral graves and people were very respectful of them, but here the graves had been disturbed. Gravestones had been knocked over and some graves had been completely dug up. The bodies inside were missing. This was one of the strongest indications that the event was more than just an ordinary abandonment. It led to theories that the villagers may have taken their dead for cultural or spiritual reasons, even though such actions would be against Inuit traditions. RCMP involvement and failed search efforts. Shocked by what he saw, Labelle immediately went to the nearest telegraph office to report the incident to the authorities. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, sent a team to investigate as soon as they were notified. Upon investigation, the RCMP confirmed Labelle's findings. The village did indeed appear to be devoid of any human presence. Everything was as it should be, but there was no sign of people. The RCMP launched a massive search for the missing villagers. They scoured the endless tundra and lakes from the air, and land teams searched every nook and cranny. All possible Inuit settlements where the villagers might have sought refuge were contacted, but these efforts came to nothing. No trace of the villagers or any clue to their disappearance has been found. This mysterious disappearance remains an unprecedented case in Canadian history. theories and assumptions. What could have really happened? News of the Anjikuni Lake event spread quickly across Canada, giving rise to various theories. Some believed that the villagers had disappeared because of a supernatural event. Others believed the villagers had been abducted by aliens or taken by unknown entities. Many people fascinated by paranormal phenomena in the early 20th century suggested a paranormal explanation for the disappearance, with some even believing that the villagers had crossed over to another dimension or reality. More rational theories suggested that the villagers may have been forced to leave due to an outbreak. But even in the case of a disease-driven evacuation, traces such as bodies or evidence would usually be left behind. This theory also seemed unlikely given that food supplies and other belongings had been left behind. Another theory was that the village had been abandoned because of a lack of food, but this too was discredited by the abundance of food found in the village. The details of this event defy rational explanation and render theories inadequate. Disturbed graves and a clash with tradition. Perhaps the most disturbing element of this disappearance story is the state of the village cemetery. Inspections revealed that graves had been dug up and the bodies were missing. Given Inuit culture and beliefs, this was an illogical development. The Inuit had a deep respect for the graves of their ancestors, and disturbing them was almost a sacred taboo. So who or what disturbed these graves? Or were the villagers themselves digging up the graves and taking their dead with them? A growing legend over time. Over the years, the story of the lost village at Anjikuni Lake became a legend passed down through generations in Canada. Labelle's original account gained new details and became more mysterious as it was retold. This legendary story attracted the attention of many researchers throughout the 20th century. Some ventured into Canada's north to verify the story, but none found concrete evidence of Labelle's discoveries. Although some Inuit elders in the region were skeptical about the story, many acknowledged that similar cases of people disappearing without a trace had been heard in the desolate lands of the north. The mystery of the lost village of Anjikuni Lake has gone down in history as one of Canada's cold cases and continues to fascinate researchers. What we learn from Anjikuni Lake: a mysterious world. The disappearance of Anjikuni Lake has left an indelible mark on Canadian history as an unsolved mystery. Even today, this enigmatic event leaves people with many questions that have yet to be answered. The waters of Anjikuni Lake reflect not only the cold northern Canadian sky, but also the mysterious disappearance of an entire village and the speculation that followed. Almost a century after Labelle's discovery, Anjikuni Lake still carries the weight of this mysterious story. Despite advances in technology and communication, the case remains one of Canada's most unusual mysteries. It raises questions about forces and events in our world that we may not fully understand. To this day, the story of the vanished village feeds our curiosity about what might happen to communities that disappear without a trace in Canada's wilderness, and raises unsettling questions in our minds. The Anjikuni Lake incident is a reminder of nature's unknowns and a story that pushes the limits of human understanding.